Have you ever noticed that, some of the most highly intelligent people in your life just rarely announce their departure? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating psychological journey based on our source material, something we're calling the silent departure. It's all about how deeply self-aware individuals quietly withdraw from their social circles. I mean, no trace, no fuss, and it completely changes their lives, which naturally leads us to a pretty inevitable question. Where exactly did they go? One day they're just, less present. Your messages might go unanswered, invitations are politely declined, and honestly, what's so striking about this isn't what's happening, but what isn't happening. They don't stir up drama, they aren't starting arguments, and you definitely won't see them posting those long emotional goodbyes on social media. They just slowly fade right into the background. But why? So, to really understand this profound shift in perspective, we're going to walk through 5 key stages today. We'll start with the silent departure, then move into recognizing hidden patterns, touch on the exhausting of awareness, unpack understanding emotional projection, and finally look at protecting your energy. Let's get right into it. Part 1 of our journey, the silent departure, or fading into the background. Now, when highly aware people start to step back, the immediate assumption, kind of the big societal myth, is that they're just arrogant, or maybe they've suddenly become antisocial. But reality is completely different. Intelligent people don't disappear because they think they're somehow better than everyone else. Actually, scratch that. It's not about arrogance at all. It's born out of a sudden, crystal clear clarity in how they see human behavior. Which brings us to part 2, recognizing hidden patterns. This is where that major shift in perspective happens. At first, weird social moments just seem totally random. But over time, the mind starts connecting the dots. And once you start recognizing the hidden patterns behind people's actions, man, it is almost impossible to unsee them. You begin to notice that some people literally only reach out when they need a favor. Or you spot the ones who celebrate your success in public, but are secretly resenting you in private. You suddenly realize just how many conversations are built purely on convenience rather than genuine care. And once these patterns become visible, I promise you, your entire view of people changes forever. This leads right into part 3, the exhaustion of awareness, because there's a heavy price for all this hyper-processing. And that growing awareness, it absolutely comes with a heavy price. While most people can just kick back and enjoy casual conversations, highly intelligent and self-aware individuals are constantly processing way more information. They're analyzing tiny changes in tone of voice, interpreting super subtle facial expressions, reading shifts in body language, and literally sensing hidden emotions. Their minds basically never stop working, which consumes an enormous amount of mental energy. They are constantly navigating this incredibly exhausting disconnect between what people say out loud and what they actually mean. Because their minds are always analyzing the emotional atmosphere, those big social gatherings that maybe once felt super exciting eventually just become draining. It's not that they dislike people, it's just that by the end of the day, all this intense mental processing leaves them completely depleted. Okay, part 4, understanding emotional projection, or as I like to think of it, realizing it's not about you. As their understanding deepens, this profound, incredibly freeing realization starts to emerge. Highly aware individuals recognize that most people aren't actually reacting to who you truly are. Instead, they're reacting to a version of you that exists entirely inside their own mind. Think about that for a second. Once you look past the surface behavior to the hidden root, the psychology becomes so clear. For instance, a person's constant criticism usually just reflects their own insecurities or jealousy, right? It's not actually a flaw in the person they're judging. Someone who constantly interrupts, well, they often simply fear being ignored. And someone seeking constant attention might actually be struggling with loneliness. Understanding this psychological framework means highly aware people completely stop taking every harsh opinion personally. It's a total game changer. And finally, part 5, protecting your energy, which is really about redefining solitude. Modern life often gives solitude a really bad reputation. It frames being alone as loneliness. But for the highly aware person, it transforms from loneliness into absolute peace. Silence becomes a sanctuary. It becomes this amazing place where they can finally hear their own thoughts without that endless, frankly exhausting noise of other people's expectations. So instead of constantly chasing attention, approval, or validation from the crowd, what do with all this peaceful silence? They invest it. They spend their time reading, focusing on continuous learning, engaging in creative pursuits, and deeply, truly understanding themselves.
They replace all that superficial noise with meaningful, lasting investments in their own personal growth. Modern life is constantly pushing us to seek approval, but real, unshakable confidence is built internally. It comes from knowing exactly who you are, even when nobody is watching. In these quiet moments, they build a solid relationship with themselves, and they realize that this internal connection is infinitely more valuable than any superficial social acceptance. As they begin really protecting their energy, fully knowing that time, emotional capacity, and mental focus are limited resources, they stop asking if someone simply likes them. Instead, they ask this ultimate framing question: does this relationship bring peace into my life, or does it quietly drain me? And wow, that single question changes absolutely everything about how they navigate the world. The answers to that question lead to some incredibly transformative boundaries. They stop arguing with people who have already decided not to understand them. They stop chasing those transactional friendships that only seem to exist when they're useful to someone else. And they stop sacrificing their own well-being just to keep everybody else comfortable. These small, deliberate decisions slowly but completely transform their lives for the better. Ultimately, you see, they didn't vanish because they became antisocial. They vanished because they became intentional. They made a fundamental choice, adopting this core philosophy: peace over performance. They choose inner tranquility over the exhausting act of constantly putting on inauthentic social performances. And they choose this, too: authenticity over approval. They prioritize being genuine and holding on to truly meaningful relationships, choosing that over the endless social noise and that constant, tiring need for validation from the crowd. So if you've recently found yourself stepping away from certain people, avoiding unnecessary conversations, or maybe just spending more time alone, please don't immediately assume something is wrong with you. Sometimes walking away isn't about getting lost at all. It's actually the very first step toward finding who you were always meant to become. But it begs a pretty huge question. Once you've found that peace, how do you reintegrate with a noisy world without losing yourself all over again? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it leaves you with something powerful to reflect on today.